Got it. Here's a 5,000-word YouTube video script for your Kindness Stories channel, including the channel intro, and based on the storyline where bullies threw leftovers on an exchange student, and she surprised everyone by flipping their leader onto the lunch table, all without headings or bracket text. Welcome back to Kindness Stories, where every tale reminds us that a small act of courage or compassion can change everything. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more true-to-life stories that will leave you inspired, moved, and maybe even smiling a little brighter today. It was the first week of the new school year at Rosemount High, a school nestled in a quiet suburban town that rarely saw a change. Most of the students had grown up together, knowing each other since kindergarten, their routines predictable and their social circles tightly drawn. So when news spread that an exchange student from South Korea would be joining the sophomore class, curiosity buzzed through the halls. Whispers floated around the lockers and cafeteria tables. Some students were excited to meet someone new, intrigued by the novelty of it, but others, particularly the group that called themselves the Core, didn't take too kindly to outsiders disrupting their comfort zone. The Core was led by Tyler, tall, athletic, loud, and, unfortunately, the kind of person who used charm and intimidation to control his surroundings. His friends, Justin, Matt, and Riley, followed his lead unquestioningly, reinforcing his behavior and enabling the worst sides of his personality. They didn't take to people who didn't fit, and they made it their mission to remind those people that they didn't belong. So when Min arrived, quiet, observant, and polite, she became an easy target. Minna had spent most of her life in Seoul, growing up in a city of hustle and fast-moving days. Her father had recently accepted a year-long visiting professorship at the local university, so Minna found herself halfway around the world, in a place where her accent stood out. Her fashion was considered neat, and her quiet manner was mistaken for weakness. The first few days were rough, teachers were kind, and a few students like Jamie and Kara made attempts to be friendly, but overall, Minna felt like a shadow trailing behind the others. She walked the halls with her books clutched tightly, sat alone during lunch, and avoided eye contact in the bustling cafeteria. She tried not to let it show, but the loneliness was starting to settle in like a permanent chill. On the fifth day, everything changed. It started during lunch, the most dangerous time for someone like Minna. The cafeteria was always loud, trays clattering, conversations overlapping, laughter erupting from different corners. Minna had found a small table near the back and was quietly eating a container of kimchi rice her mother had packed for her. She had just taken a bite when a meatball rolled across her tray. She looked up in surprise to see Tyler, grinning widely, with a flick spoon in his hand. "Oops," he said, with mock innocence. "Didn't mean to share my food." His friends burst out laughing. Minna calmly picked up the meatball, wiped it with a napkin, and set it aside. She said nothing. "Oh, she doesn't talk much," Justin said, pretending to whisper, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Maybe she doesn't know English." Tyler stepped closer to her table. "You know, we don't do raw fish and fermented stuff here. It stinks up the place." Riley snorted. "Yeah, what is that, anyway?" "Roadkill." Minna looked at her food, then at them, still calm. She didn't flinch, didn't shrink, but she didn't engage either. That seemed to irritate Tyler. "All right," he said. "You don't want to talk. That's fine." He grabbed his tray, piled with leftover spaghetti, salad, and a puddle of ranch dressing, and, in one swift motion, dumped the entire mess on Minna's table, splashing her books and staining her neat blazer. A gasp swept through the cafeteria. Some students laughed nervously, others stared. Too stunned to move. Minna stood up slowly, the mess dripped from her books, the salad clinging to the sleeve of her jacket. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes were fixed squarely on Tyler now. "What?" Tyler said with a smirk. "You gonna cry now?" Minna tilted her head slightly and said, clear and even, "No, but you should be careful." That confused him. "Careful of what?" "Balance," she replied. And before anyone could process what was happening, Minna moved. With the grace of a dancer and the precision of someone who trained for years, she stepped forward, pivoted, and in one smooth motion, flipped Tyler over her shoulder. It wasn't a clumsy shove or a wild reaction. It was a controlled throw, the kind you might see in a martial arts tournament. Tyler landed with a loud, stunned thud on the lunch table behind them, rattling trays and spilling drinks. The entire cafeteria went silent. Minna stepped back, adjusted her jacket, and looked at the stunned crowd. That was Taekwondo. I've been training since I was 6. Then she turned to Tyler, who was groaning on the table. Maybe next time, you'll think twice before bullying someone smaller than you. With that, she picked up her stained books, calmly walked over to the trash, discarded the ruined food, and left the cafeteria. The silence broke like a wave. Some students started clapping. Others burst into laughter or jumped to their feet, stunned and cheering. Tyler's friends just stood there, unsure what to do. By the end of the day, Mina's name was on everyone's lips. Some students high-fived her in the halls. Others asked about her training, suddenly fascinated. Even the teachers, though officially neutral, seemed to walk with a little smirk when Minna passed by. But what mattered most was that the fear was gone. The sense of isolation that had weighed on Minna all week had been replaced with something else. Quiet respect. Tyler didn't show up to school for 2 days. When he did return, the fire in his eyes had dimmed. He walked past Minna without a word. In fact, he didn't bother her or anyone else. Again, Minna didn't become the most popular girl in school. She didn't suddenly have dozens of friends overnight. But what changed was the way people looked at her, and more importantly, how they treated her. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was seen. Over the following weeks, Jamie and Kara started sitting with her at lunch. A group of students joined her in the library for a study group. Minna even started a small Taekwondo club after school, open to anyone who wanted to learn. She taught with patience, focusing not just on moves but on discipline, confidence, and respect. It wasn't about fighting. It was about standing your ground when you needed to, about not letting the world define your worth by how loudly others shouted. One day, Tyler showed up at the door of the Taekwondo club. He didn't say much, just stood there awkwardly, watching. Minna nodded to him. You can join, but you'll have to start from white belt. Tyler hesitated, then stepped forward. I think I need to, he muttered. And just like that, the story came full circle. A girl who was once the target of mockery had become a quiet leader. A boy who thrived on dominance was learning humility. And a school that had once turned a blind eye was now watching with open eyes. Because sometimes, the greatest power lies not in strength, but in the courage to face injustice with calm conviction. And kindness, sometimes, it starts with flipping a bully onto a lunch table and ends with changing hearts. Thanks for watching Kindness Stories. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that courage comes in many forms, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. New stories drop every week. Real-life reminders that kindness is never weakness, and sometimes it changes everything.